On December 14th, 1972, a man stood on the moon. He looked around one last time. Gray dust, black sky, complete silence. Then he climbed a ladder, closed a hatch, and left. Nobody has been back since. Not in 10 years. Not in 20 years. Not in 52 years. The most extraordinary place a human being has ever stood, abandoned. And the man who was last there spent the rest of his life trying to go back. He never did. This is the story of Eugene Cernan, the last human to walk on the moon, and why that title was never supposed to be permanent. Eugene Cernan was not supposed to be last. He was a Navy pilot from Chicago, a man who grew up looking at the sky and decided that was where he belonged. He flew jets off aircraft carriers. He trained as a test pilot. He was selected by NASA in 1963 as part of the third group of astronauts, 14 men chosen from thousands. His first mission was Gemini 9 in 1966, a spacewalk that nearly killed him. His suit overheated, his visor fogged up completely. He was blind. Tumbling in space, held to the spacecraft by a single tether, he survived. 3 years later, he flew to the moon for the first time on Apollo 10. They came within 14 kilometers of the surface, close enough to see craters in detail, close enough to feel it, but they did not land. That mission was a rehearsal. Cernan went home knowing he had been 14 kilometers away from the surface of another world. That number stayed with him for the rest of his life. In 1972, Cernan got his second chance. Apollo 17, the last Apollo mission, though nobody called it that yet. On December 7th, the rocket launched at 12:33 in the morning. It was the first and only nighttime launch of the Apollo program. Cernan commanded a crew of 3. Harrison Schmitt, a geologist. Ronald Evans, who would orbit above while the others descended. 4 days later, they landed in a valley called Taurus Littrow. Cernan was the first to step out. He described the moment like this: "You are instantly aware that what you are standing on is not Earth. The dust is different. The silence is different. Even the darkness above you is different. There is no atmosphere, no sky, just stars." They drove a rover across craters. They collected rocks. They planted instruments. And Cernan, between tasks, would stop sometimes. Just stop and look. He said later he felt guilty for taking even 1 second away from the mission, but he could not help it. He knew even then it might be the last time any human stood in that place. He just did not know it would be for this long. On the last day, December 14th, before climbing back into the lander for the final time, Cernan did something that was not in the mission plan. He walked away from the lander, alone, and with his finger, through his thick astronaut glove, he traced 3 letters into the lunar dust. T.D.C, the initials of his daughter, Teresa Dawn Cernan. She was 9 years old. He said nothing about it to mission control. He said nothing to his crew, thinking about his daughter 270,000 miles away. Those 3 letters are still there. The moon has no wind, no rain, no erosion of any kind. In 1 billion years, when the sun has changed and continents on Earth have moved, those 3 letters will still be exactly where he left them. T.D.C, the most permanent thing any human being has ever written, more permanent than the pyramids, more permanent than any monument, more permanent than any book. 3 letters in dust that will outlast everything we have ever built. Teresa Cernan is in her 60s now. Her initials are on the moon. They will be there long after every human alive today is gone. At 5:40 p.m. on December the 14th, 1972, Eugene Cernan climbed the ladder of the lunar lander for the last time. Before his boot left the surface, he spoke into his microphone. These were his exact words: "As I take these last steps from the surface, it's been a long way, but we're home to stay for a while. As we leave the moon at Taurus Littrow, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. We shall return." He genuinely believed it. Every person listening believed it. NASA had missions planned through Apollo 20. There was talk of moon bases, permanent stations, a stepping stone to Mars. None of it happened. 3 months after Cernan left the moon, NASA canceled all remaining Apollo missions. Budget cuts. The space race was over. America had beaten the Soviet Union. The political will was gone. Cernan found out from a press release. Not a phone call, not a meeting, a press release. The last man on the moon learned that nobody was going back the same way everyone else did, by reading about it in the news. Cernan left NASA in 1976. He was 42 years old. young enough to have gone back, old enough to know the window was closing. He went into business. He gave speeches. He wrote a book called The Last Man on the Moon, a title he never wanted to have. He said in interview after interview, the word last implies finality. It implies we gave up. We did not give up. We just stopped. There is a difference. He needed people to understand that. For decades he fought to get humans back to the moon. He testified before Congress. He sat in hearing rooms and explained to politicians why it mattered, why leaving and never returning was not acceptable. He met with presidents. He appeared at every space conference that would have him. He shook hands with engineers who were born after he left the moon. His message was always the same. We know how to do this. We have done this. The only thing missing is the decision to go, but the decision never came. The years passed. 10 years after he left, the space shuttle flew for the first time. Low Earth orbit, a few hundred kilometers up. Not the moon. 20 years after he left, the Cold War ended. The reason America had gone to the moon in the first place, competition, was gone. Nobody needed to prove anything anymore. Not the moon. 30 years after he left, the International Space Station began construction in orbit, 16 nations working together. A permanent human presence in space. Low Earth orbit, a few hundred kilometers up. Not the moon, not Mars, not anywhere close to where he had stood. Cernan watched all of it from Earth. He watched the people who might have followed him onto the moon grow old alongside him, astronauts who trained for missions that were canceled before they flew, engineers who designed moon bases that were never built, scientists who studied lunar samples for decades, waiting for more that never came. Cernan never stopped believing someone would go back. He attended every launch. He watched every mission. He kept showing up, at conferences, at schools, at NASA events, because he believed that showing up mattered, that if enough people kept saying we should go back, eventually someone would listen. He just stopped believing it would happen in his lifetime. He was right. Eugene Cernan died on January 16, 2017. He was 82 years old. Nobody had returned to the moon. At his memorial, astronauts, engineers, politicians filled the room. His daughter Tracy spoke. She talked about a phone call she received from her father sometime in the 1990s. He called to tell her he had seen a photograph taken by a lunar orbiter, a satellite circling the moon, that had captured the landing site of Apollo 17. In the photograph, if you looked closely enough, you could see the tracks left by the rover. You could see the equipment they had left behind. And in one corner of the image, barely visible, 3 small marks in the dust. T.D.C. He called his daughter to tell her he could see her initials from space. She said he was crying. NASA plans to return to the moon in 2026, 54 years after Cernan left. When the next human steps onto that surface, somewhere nearby, those 3 letters will still be there. 12 humans have walked on the moon, all between 1969 and 1972. 3 years, then nothing. We went from never having left Earth to walking on another world in less than a decade. Then we stopped. Not because we could not continue, not because it was impossible, because we chose to stop. Think about what that means. We solved every problem that stood between us and the moon. Rockets, navigation, life support, landing, walking, returning. Every single problem solved. Then we decided the problem was no longer worth solving. Eugene Cernan's last words on the moon were, "We shall return." He meant it as a promise, not to NASA, not to America, to everyone. 52 years later, that promise is still waiting to be kept. The moon has not changed, the dust has not moved, the silence is not broken, and somewhere on that surface, in dust that has not shifted in half a century, T.D.C. still there, still waiting, just like he left it.